everyone, and welcome to the next installment of Nat Chat, the Natilik podcast. Today, I'm joined with Russ, Xavi, and James, and I will let you guys introduce yourselves first before we jump into today's session. So, James, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Just sorting out my glasses, make sure I look good for camera. So, James Nunn, Sales Director for London Enterprise. I've been in Natilik for 7.5 years now, originally working within the enterprise team, directly with a number of financial services, insurance, legal firms, and then now leading that team and having even broader and greater exposure to clients and their challenges. And yeah, thank you very much for having me.
And Russ?
Hi everybody. I'm Russ Parslow. I'm a solution engineer at HashiCorp. I've been here now for just coming up to about 5 years, I think. So yeah, I've worked with customers really all across Europe. If I go back a little bit further, actually, if I go back to about 7 years ago, I actually had dreams of being a podcaster. So I bought the microphone, I bought the headphone, the stand, the pop filter, all the equipment, figuring that if I do that, then I'll be a podcaster. This is actually the first podcast I've ever recorded. So thank you very much. I'm very nervous because this could be a whole new career for me finally after 7 years. But yeah, thanks for having me.
That's brilliant. I'm so pleased you managed to actually get the kit out and give it a go.
Guys, I have to say I feel really left out because I am the only one who doesn't have a professional studio recording equipment. I've got my 2 headsets here. You all have beautiful things around you. But hey, I hope you hear me okay. My name is Xavi Garcia. I'm part of the Prisma Cloud team in Palo Alto Networks. And what I do in this role is I help customers build secure applications in the cloud. And this is what I'd like to talk to you today about, guys.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And exactly that. So today we're going to talk all around security and also how we can elevate our zero trust approaches within that security strategy. And we know, obviously, from our partnerships with HashiCorp and Palo Alto Networks and Natilik, that there are some fantastic joint solutions out there. And we're just going to discuss a couple of them today and really contextualize them against some of the pain points we're seeing with our customers in the market at the moment. So actually, that might be a really good place to start. So James, you get to speak to clients day in, day out. What are you seeing as trends in their challenges when it comes to applying what we're now terming as a zero trust approach?
Yeah, sure. So just, I suppose, one kind of general observation is that, and I don't know if Xavi and Russ would agree, that the world that we are in at the moment with this kind of topic of zero trust, there's a lot of focus and a consensus across a number of different organizations, doesn't matter what industry or vertical they're in, around adopting and applying zero trust principles and methodologies. And it feels like probably one of the first time in ages where that's been the case across the board. With I think about going back and talking to clients several years back, and they all had different agendas, different kind of styles and approaches, sort of relying on different frameworks and things like that. Whereas it feels like we're in a place now where there's a lot of focus on this, on trying to achieve the same thing in zero trust, which is kind of just I don't know if that's just me, but it's an interesting view. And then, yeah, in terms of clients then sort of facing various different challenges and trying to do that, it feels like, again, there's a lot of the same conversation happening with clients around the challenges that they see. Complexity of systems is definitely one. We've had extensive application proliferation in the last couple of years. I think the stats is 14 times increase in applications over the last 3-4 years, especially probably accelerated by the pandemic and everyone working from home. On top of that, you have the cloud-first strategy that a lot of organizations are adopting, adding in additional complexity because they're in this sort of hybrid state or trying to move to, from and beyond the hybrid state into a multi-cloud world, which then creates even more complexity in itself without the right tools and systems and processes in place. you've got just ever increasing threats, right? The cyber security criminals out there are getting smarter and smarter. We're seeing, I think it was in 2022 alone, there was 80% of around 350 enterprises that were surveyed had witnessed some sort of compromise, business email compromise, ransomware, phishing attack, and that's ever increasing. Workforces are busier and more distracted than ever before. There's an increased attack surface because we've got this kind of disparate working environments with everyone having a hybrid working approach, being able to work from a coffee shop or from home or the office or basically anywhere in between. And then that's compounded by the fact that there's a real lack of skill set, I think, in the market at the moment, coupled with the need to go faster than ever before. Like this kind of post-pandemic, if we can call it post-pandemic, kind of view of expectation of efficiency of people. Like, kind of expect everyone to work 12-hour days regardless, but yet be more and more in the office is an interesting one. And then it's kind of, security professionals trying to catch up with their tools and being able to automate and orchestrate more. That sounds like it's something that's still an aspiration for a lot of people rather than being a reality. But clearly there's options for them. And then probably the final thing I call out is just general market pressure in terms of heightened focus on audit trails, compliance, making sure that everything is well documented. There's the ability to kind of employ like a forensic approach to be able to demonstrate that you have the right technology tool sets in place. And it's then becoming ever more critical with other things beyond security, like business insurance and stuff like that. Actually had a client call last week, and they talked about a 1,000-point audit that they needed to complete to be able to kind of fulfill their business insurance obligation, to be able to commit that they were, and this was all security-focused questionnaire topics, which is just incredible. Financial institutions, I kind of get it, but 1,000 points of security protocols that you need to go through. I didn't envy the security professional I was talking to, but yeah, just there's a lot that clients are having to deal with at the moment.
Yeah, it really is like a massive list. It just seems to be ever growing, and from all different angles, from a people angle, a skill set angle, external, internal, compliance, everything. And it's really interesting, actually. Something we'll come to you, Russ, on is obviously there's been this over about the past 10, especially 5 years, greater adoption in taking like an infrastructure code approach to try and tackle some of these challenges, whether it's being setting consistent policies, whether it's faster speed of deployment across all kind of infrastructure, but particularly in the security space, thinking about some of the challenges James mentioned around speed and skill set and things like that. It'll be great to maybe just get your 1 minute high level take on, what does HashiCorp do? Because obviously we associate infrastructure as code with Terraform, with HashiCorp, but it'll be great just to be guys, this is what it does. This is where we sit. And this is what we're doing to help address some of those challenges we're finding with those zero trust approach, with that zero trust approach. Yeah,
absolutely. It's sometimes a bit of a challenge because at HashiCorp, I don't know if everyone's aware, we actually have 8 products, which is it's difficult to keep up with all of them, but they all kind of focus on specific areas. So we can talk a little bit about Terraform. It's probably one of the most widely known, but if we're just trying to take it back a little bit, if we think about I think for most enterprises, and James, you kind of talked about this, they're going through this digital transformation. We can call it whatever we want, cloud modernization, whatever it may be. But ultimately, it's about sort of delivering new business, increased customer value. But everyone wants to do it quickly and at scale. I think, kind of gone are the days of, it's not quite as important to be first to market. I think it's more about being able to react quickly to what the market actually needs. I think those are the companies that are being the most successful are those that are able to quickly react versus sure we can react, but it's going to take us about 6 to 12 months to be able to react to it. It's kind of too late. But as they kind of go through this shift, therefore, it's kind of the focus has moved away from sort of cost optimization to more one of sort of speed, I suppose. I speak to people now, and cost is important. Don't get me wrong; they're still super important. It's very high on kind of people's list, but I don't think people are putting moving to cloud as a saving cost. That's not really what they're trying to do. It's to increase this speed, increase this agility, and there's kind of, I guess, two challenges with that. So the first is, how can we deliver applications in the cloud with reliable consistency? That's, one of the hardest challenges I speak to people about. The other thing is really about, how can we make sure that security is embedded throughout that entire software delivery lifecycle? We call it, shift left is what we normally talk about it, because again, it used to be the day many years ago as a server engineer, security was the thing you did at the end versus something that you did kind of throughout the process. But kind of speaking specifically about infrastructure as code, I'm sure everyone listening knows what infrastructure as code is, but just in case you haven't heard about it, it's a way for you to manage your infrastructure with sort of configuration files rather than sort of GUIs or user interfaces that I used to be a Windows Server engineer many moons ago. And doing things in code was quite scary. I used to like to click things in a GUI. But infrastructure code allows you to, basically define your infrastructure, your requirements, be able to build it, change it on, day 2, day 3, day N, remove parts of it, add new parts to it, and kind of manage it in code, which we've been able to do. If we think about application code and what we've been able to do with that for decades, we can now do that with infrastructure code as well. We put it into version control. We can do peer review. We can add things to it. We can remove things. We can share it. We can reuse it, all that kind of good stuff. And Terraform is HashiCorp's infrastructure as code tool, if you like. So it allows you to define all of those different resources. I need virtual machines. I need networks. I need firewalls in sort of human readable, because humans are not JSON processors. I can't read JSON. It's a big mess of commas and curly braces. So it's a nice human readable format that allows you to declare all of your resources and then manage it throughout the life cycle as well. The really cool thing about Terraform is it uses something called providers. So providers are a way to allow Terraform to know how to interact with various different pieces of technology, whether that's AWS, Azure, GCP, for example. But it could be, there's a provider for Palo Alto networks actually write a provider for Terraform that allows them to manage the firewalls, or there's one for Prisma Cloud as well. So we can actually use Terraform to declaratively describe how we want our Prisma Cloud configuration to kind of be set up as well. And there's a whole host of these providers. We had a global conference recently, and I think we said there's over 2,000. I actually checked. There's actually over 2,500 different providers for Terraform. So it basically allows you to manage your entire estate in a consistent way as well. It's the same language that you sort of use, even though you may be managing, almost certainly you're managing dozens, if not hundreds of different types of technology as well. The other great thing about it is you can define, or you can create modules inside of Terraform as well. So, this is how we deploy a virtual machine, or this is how we deploy an S3 bucket, or this is how we deploy an entire application stack. Absolutely everything that consists of. It could be hundreds or sometimes even thousands of things as well. So we start moving away from sort of manually building stuff, or, raise a ticket. I need new infrastructure. This speaks to agility. I need some new infrastructure. Sure, raise a ticket and we'll give it to you in 2 months. Like that's too late. My customers need it today. I need to scale up because, there's something happening. I need that right now. So we can start to use things like, modules that are sort of a predefined way of how I, deploy one of these things, remove, the requirement for, long-lived processes like tickets, but do it in a consistent way. So we talked about, that kind of security. So how we deploy an S3 bucket, we want to make sure that, the various different parameters that we need to be set are set. How do we do that? Well, if I've got a module, I can just take that and use it. And I don't really need to worry, because some smart person's already figured out what it is that I actually need to configure. And if I think about, again, back to when I was a server engineer, we used to have these things called build documents. So people are probably familiar with this. You'd typically print it out. It's about an inch thick of paper, and you'd go to page 1 and follow the instructions. Page 2, follow the instructions. And invariably, you printed it out so it was out of date, so because, unfortunately, paper documents don't update themselves. Invariably, someone missed a step out as well. So they turned 2 pages at once, or, half the document, fell off the desk, or whatever it may be. Using Terraform is basically, it's like executable documentation. So instead of having to think about all these steps, it's right there. You just run it and it does things in a consistent way. So, with Terraform and with things like modules and with all of these providers that are available, you can kind of leverage the sort of knowledge and expertise from your team, but also, partners like Natilik as well. So, you can write these modules, you can do it once, but then you can reuse them over and over again, knowing that you're going to get the same outcome, and it's kind of secure by design because you kind of bake that into the modules.
Yeah, I think actually that's really interesting, that phrase, like secure by design. It really kind of encompasses that whole bit of being consistent. And like you said, if you have like an amazing like way that you're going to configure a certain thing, that you want that to be deployed as a standard. You want to have that best practice baked in, especially if your team are disparate, if they're remote, if they're everywhere. And it does kind of tick those boxes also with the audit trail, like, and compliance issues that we're finding. And you talking about like printing out the documents, in my head, I'm just like that. And that's as long as the printer actually prints, you don't run out of ink halfway through. Like, but it is that automatic update as well. So, whatever you're going to is going to be the latest, the greatest. But Xavi, something which actually, probably the little control freak in me also kind of goes, infrastructure as code. It's supposed to be there to like remove the human error element of manually typing in something. And, if you haven't had your coffee and, you're a little bit sloppy on the keyboard, it removes that. It does. But then obviously having all of this code, which is so intrinsic and so important to how your business is going to run, checking that surely has got to be, on top of your radar. And I know that obviously at Palo Alto Networks that you worked with obviously the Prisma Cloud team and their CCS tool that kind of helps combat that. So would love to get your take on what you guys are doing there.
First of all, to start, I think that infrastructure as code is an amazing invention. I really identify with what Ross has been talking about. This printed manual. I was 25 also at some point in my life, and being sitting in a lab, following up a procedure and not doing it right because you make mistakes, you get it wrong. So it is clear when I talk to my customers, and as you said, customers love the fact that they systematically deploy systems exactly the same way. And when they need to deploy 1,000 Palo Alto firewalls using infrastructure as code, this is amazing for them. There's no space for errors there's no space for human error because of repetition. And they also like the speed that this gives them. I mean, the fact of being able to say, I need to deploy that, and I don't need to open a ticket, I don't need to wait for that. This is just an unbelievable invention. Now, the problem that they find, and the problem that I try to help them address, is I built this fantastic template that defines how I'm going to deploy how I'm going to deploy all the instances of my cloud application, for example. And 2 weeks later, I realized that a new vulnerability is discovered. And I realized that my template was actually referring to a module that had that vulnerability. And all of a sudden, if I've deployed 1,000 times that servers or systems with that template, I've got that vulnerability 1,000 times in my runtime, in my systems that are running. Or if somebody, for any reason, I mean, we all make mistakes, and there's version 1, version 2 of things. So if on the version that you wrote of the infrastructure as code, you forgot, Ross was talking about an S3 bucket. You forgot to encrypt that S3 bucket. You just forgot to declare it as an encrypted S3 bucket. What happens? I mean, you running, you publish that. Now, the truth is that what customers have been doing until now is, okay, help me see if the infrastructure that I'm running is secure, is correctly configured, and is vulnerable, okay? And there's, for cloud applications, there's even a term, CSPM. Everybody does CSPM today. I mean, any security vendor out there does CSPM. There's no doubt about it. And they'll go and check the infrastructure that you're running is going to say, yeah, they're going to come back with the report with 1,000 problems. Now, because Palo Alto obviously has a CSPM module as well in their Prisma Cloud platform. When I show this report to a customer, I feel ashamed because I know there's nothing they're going to be able to do with the report that has 1,000 things that need to be fixed. Even if we prioritize these vendors and we tell them, don't worry, I'll show you the top 5. Yeah, the top 5, but there's still 995 that come after, and there's another 1,000 that will come next week when I deploy my new version, because I'm deploying new versions all the time. So, because that's why I'm in the cloud, because I want to be agile. Now, to me, this means that looking at runtime is not the way I'm going to fix that, because all the errors have been made before. So, Ross, you were talking about shift left a minute ago. So, why, instead of looking at the result, why don't I look at the recipe? Why don't I look at this infrastructure as code file, and I review it, and I say, hey, we are declaring an S3 bucket here that is not encrypted. Do we really want to do that? No. Okay, then let's fix it before we actually build the application, before we actually deploy the application, before we actually run the application. So I never publish an application that has this misconfiguration, this vulnerability. And I can do that in plenty of places. I mean, I can look at this infrastructure as code inside the IDE when the developer is defining the code, and I can very easily tell the developer, hey, this line you did here, like in the Word documents, I am Spanish, so I do a lot of spelling mistakes in English. So I get this quickly red line underneath what I'm writing, and I just right-click. I say, oh, this is spelled like this. So I just say, fix it for me. Now, if I had declared an S3 bucket that was not encrypted, I will get this quickly red line underneath the declaration, right-click, and say, do you want me to fix it for you? Say yes, and that would change the code on the infrastructure as code file and fix it to me. Wow, I am a developer, and I am building code that is secure, that doesn't have these flaws. Or even if I am a developer and I decided not to do that, or I didn't write the code because I downloaded it from somewhere else, I send that to my CI/CD pipeline, and then at build time, I know that obviously HashiCorp, with if I'm not mistaken, with your Sentinel policy guys, you're able to validate a lot of the things on the code that you're building. What if we added these controls to these Sentinel policies and said, okay, validate that we're not using any vulnerable modules, that we don't have any misconfigurations before actually that code is built and the application is actually run. So this is the whole idea of shifting left, and I think that this is customers, instead of looking at the end result, they should be looking earlier. Because fixing one problem when you're writing the code might cost you 5 minutes. The mean time to resolution when the code is already been deployed is normally measured in days, if not in weeks, So imagine if you pay $10 per hour to an engineer that needs to fix it. Imagine from 5 minutes to 12 hours, the amount of cost times 1,000 incidents. The savings are huge, and that's the whole idea of Prisma Cloud.
Yeah, I really like your analogy around the spell check. And I think that's what I've kind of used as an example of where can you see the value in these joint solutions? And it's really reassuring to see vendors like HashiCorp and Palo Alto coming together and literally putting brains together in a room and being like, how can we make this better? How can we make this faster and smoother and actually deliver to what clients need? And it's exactly that. It's that cost saving of being able to pick up a potential fault or a little error when you're writing your recipe to make sure that your cake doesn't fall flat in the oven. It's as simple as that. And obviously it's not very simple. I'm not a developer. I couldn't do it. Don't ask me to. But it's that concept of a stitch in time saves 9. And I think it's fantastic to be able to bring all of these together to make sure that you actually are protecting your infrastructure and in turn your people as best you can. I don't know whether there's lots of other different joint solutions between you guys that we know of. Russ, you mentioned that there are there's 8 products within the HashiCorp portfolio, and obviously Palo Alto Network have an ever-growing portfolio of different products that they're working on, and us in-house at Natilik, we use a lot of them. But it'd be great just to get your take on, are there other points of the zero trust approach, as we say, that we could elevate it with these kind of joint solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, zero trust is something that's really kind of resonating with customers. I think there's different terminology that we use in this industry, right? That some people know what it means and some people don't. But if you say zero trust to people, I think a lot of people are really catching on to what this is, particularly as people are moving to the cloud as well. So again, if we kind of think, again, I'm going to draw on my experience from when I was a server engineer. It feels like forever ago, probably was forever ago. The data center that we had was this kind of castle and moat approach. If people are kind of familiar with that, you put everything into a castle, you build really, strong walls around it, you build a moat and everything like that. And there's kind of only one way in and out of that castle, or in and out of that data center. The assumption being is, if you're on the inside, you're trusted, you can roam around freely. If you're on the outside, that's bad, that's untrusted. But if we control really securely what comes through that single point of ingress and egress, we're going to be absolutely fine. That model doesn't really work with the cloud, and probably didn't really work with the data center that we had as well. If we kind of think about, we look about some of the sort of historic, data breaches that organizations have unfortunately had. I don't know if that approach really kind of worked. But if we think of like the modern approach that we're trying to get to, the idea that we would, trust an IP address it's almost laughable today. Every access request that we have should be verified. And if you think about this in terms of, think of the biggest sort of zero trust network in the world, which is the internet. It's how we're talking, talking today. This kind of concept of talking over this sort of no trust, zero trust network, it's not a new one. We've had the internet for a while now, but I think people are kind of realizing that this this applies to your internal data centers. This applies to your, your cloud environment as well. We secure all the communication with, HTTPS. Every time I check my email, for example, in my browser, there's, some kind of, token or session or cookie or whatever it is that basically identifies me so that no one else can read my emails, although my email's full of really boring stuff anyway. Not anyone will want to read it, but even so, we kind of have all of this, this security to establish identity. If we talk about, again, there's probably three products I could actually talk about HashiCorp, but I'm just going to focus on one today, which is HashiCorp Vault, which is kind of near and dear to my heart. I've been working with a lot of customers with Vault for a number of years, actually. But Vault basically enables teams to securely store and tightly control access to things like, tokens, API keys, passwords, PKI certificates, SSH certificates. That's always an interesting one as well. Encryption keys and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a Vault is many things to different people as well, by the way. I think I have to call it a platform now and not a tool, because to one team it will be, that's where we store our API keys. Another one, it's like, this is where we get all of our TLS certificates from. For someone else, it's our encryption as a service type platform as well. So it's kind of all these different things. So Vault is basically a secrets management solution, but it also has a lot of advanced data protection capabilities as well. How can I protect my data at rest, and how can I protect it in transit as well? I think the key to the zero trust for me is really around identity. I think that is the thing that really enables zero trust to happen. I think it would be difficult, if not impossible, to do without that. So in the same way that, I have to log into my email, I use my identity to grant me access to my email. We want to apply that same sort of approach to our applications as well. So how can our applications use their identity, which is baked into all of the cloud providers today, and platforms like Kubernetes as well, have this concept of identities baked right into the product. In fact, you'd struggle to use these things without using this concept of identity. I don't know how you would use the cloud or Kubernetes without kind of using identity. And we can use that for our applications to be able to say what secrets they're allowed to access, and they're only allowed to access the secrets that their identity allows as well. So, it's not like the castle and moat. Well, once we're in, we've got access to everything. I maybe only have access to one single token inside of all of Vault, or, maybe I've got access to a series of them, and whatever it may be, we can kind of control that access through Vault as well. And we've got really nice integration with Prisma Cloud as well. So the integration that we have allows Vault to provide kind of just-in-time injection of secrets for things like cloud and containerized applications. So rather than, I've seen this unfortunately, instead of a developer taking a secret and putting it into their YAML file, and then they put that into version control, and everyone in the whole team can see it and copy it and do whatever they want with it, you can just provide like a reference to a secret rather than the secret itself. That secret is stored inside of Vault, and then Prisma Cloud can actually retrieve that secret from Vault and inject it into a container, for example, at the point at which you deploy it. So again, really, it's all around establishing identity, using that identity to broker access to different things. Web server needs to talk to database. Classic example of that is, how can I do that without having to hard code credentials? And we can leverage identity to do that. And the thing that we're seeing is, typically when, again, going back all those years, I keep talking about, I need to find something new to talk about. But when I was a server engineer, it was very much humans were part of this process. I need to get the web server to talk to the database server. Well, I'll go and talk to the database administrator, and I will get that credential from them, which probably never changed and was never rotated, and probably 15 years later is still the same. And then I'll go and configure that inside of the application. Well, there's a couple of problems with that process. One is you have to trust the operator, and you shouldn't have to trust the operator, although I'm sure all the operators are trustworthy. It doesn't scale particularly well either. Like there's one of me, and if we think about the scale at which people are deploying applications today, this could be, you might have to do this 1,000 times a day, for example. So, the thing that I see interestingly with Vault is we take the human out of that process. So application loses its identity to speak directly to Vault, or using Prisma Cloud to inject those secrets into it as well, without any operator interaction as well. So we can do things at kind of massive scale.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's. I love the terminology. I know this is probably like the marketing person in me. Like when you're talking about it, I just have the 90s like club tune. Like I've got the key, I've got the secret like going on in my head. But it really is. It's building that capability to make sure that your access and that identity piece is really baked into what you're doing. I suppose obviously people then take that a little bit further, and they have policy as code, and they kind of build that into their security strategy as well. I don't know, like Xavi, have you seen, obviously, when you're seeing clients or like use cases with this kind of like Prisma Cloud, like identity piece, like where are you seeing the benefits coming from? Oh, you just need to pop yourself off mute.
Thank you. I think that Ross just explained it extremely well, actually, better than I knew how to explain that, Ross, about what happens, when I see that somebody's put in a secret in an infrastructure as code file, what happens, how this integrates with Vault, and how we address that problem. But you need to think that when you look at statistics, I'm not going to be able to give you a number because you caught me unprepared there, but a big number of the successful breaches that happen today are through stolen credentials. And one of the main sources, apart from phishing, which we know that it's a huge source for stolen credentials, but one of the main sources for stolen credentials is people just browsing all the available code that they find on the internet. I mean, on repos on the internet, whether it's infrastructure as code, whether it's any other type of code, and they just have bots looking through these files, looking, where am I going to find somebody's credentials? And when I find somebody's credentials, and they do, then bingo. The only thing they need to do is identify who created that file, what corporation they work for. They might say then the login, because the login probably is going to be the email address. And they can say, okay, I know. And then I just need to try it. Hey, I just connected onto this server, and I've got root. I'm root on this server. Wow, game over. I have won. So avoiding writing, hard coding secrets on any type of code is fundamental to basic security. People still do it every single day. Because yes, I'm doing it in my dev environment. It's only a test, and then that code that they write for the dev environment eventually ends up moving to the prod environment and ends up being published and ends up everywhere, and that is a huge problem. So yes, please developers, please do not hard code secrets on anywhere. And if you do, then please make sure you use Prisma Cloud to review the code that you write. Because I mean, today I see customers, if there's a build that's happening automatically, and one of the files that is part of the build includes a hard-coded secret, then I think we should stop the build. I mean, I see a lot of customers saying that build gets stopped. Oh, but we're supposed to release this Friday night. No, we're not going to release this like this. So yes, using Vault in combination with Prisma Cloud is definitely a solution to a big security risk.
Definitely. And James, actually, it'll be quite interesting to get your take, because obviously we've spoken about a couple of different points on this zero trust approach and where clients can actually elevate how we're saying the zero trust strategy. Obviously there's a lot of different terminology. We've spoken about secrets, infrastructure as code, and everything. It can come across as a little bit daunting. Where would you say would be a really good starting point, or where has Natilik in the past helped clients actually embark on this journey of a zero trust approach?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, fundamentally, it's kind of the same question that we ask everyone. It's what are you trying to achieve? I think we have a good understanding across the breadth of clients that we have that, and as I said earlier, that there's a kind of a common thread in terms of where clients are trying to go and the challenges that they're facing. That we already have some of the answers to those questions. But yeah, we just need to understand what they're trying to achieve. We have a proven services methodology that kind of helps us walk you as a client through what what this journey could look like for your organization. A lot of it's big key part for us is the discovery phase, just really uncovering core requirements, what is driving the business, ultimately what is the end goal, and how can we plot the milestones on that journey to get you to that desired outcome. Yeah, so once we kind of get a view as to what you're trying to achieve, we've got a proven services methodology that can help take you on that journey, right? Plot the different milestones along that journey to get you to the desired outcome. And it's not just a sales guy. We've got the technical expertise in-house, both from a Palo and Hashi perspective. I think we have sort of most highly accredited in both areas. I know we've got some of the only Hashi accredited engineers in Europe, I think, for the level that we're at. And also client success. That's massive for us. We've got a very successful client success practice that is working in tandem with both Palo and Hashi to help ensure that we're going to not just plot this journey, map out what it looks like, but actually take clients on that journey and ensure that there's someone whose sole focus is on ensuring that clients maximize their investment and actually hit those milestones. And we have various ways in which we can achieve that. We can look at an adoption maturity assessment up front, kind of help determine where are we today, but also then a full success plan that takes us through what are those milestones, how do we get there, both from a technical standpoint and from a client maturity perspective, and then take us to trying to wrap some level of assurance around our approach. And I think that's an incredibly important, but also incredibly valuable part of what Natilik can do. And we're seeing success with it. Clients are already raving about our client success practice, the value that it's bringing. And client success has been around for a long time, but I think we've kind of maybe just sort of managed to hone in on the secret sauce here. And that is very much because of the backing of our, with the backing of our partners with Palo and Hashi, to really augment kind of the theory and the methodology with that technical underpinning. So yeah, it's going incredibly well so far, and I think there's a number of clients that we can definitely help. Brilliant.
I do love that Palo and Hashi. I think that could be the next relationship shipping bit going on there. And it's really interesting because also in-house, you talked about the expertise that Natilik have. We have actually built a living, breathing showcase where we've brought together Hashi and Palo and the solutions. So if any of the listeners want to come in, want to see it, want to get really hands-on with the technology, get in touch, like come into the office, have a play in the environment, see what it can do, see the outcomes, test a couple of configurations and different workload streams. So yeah, please get in touch with us.
I just want to make a point on that as well, is that in Natilik, we're very much around sipping our own champagne. So we use Terraform in-house for our own application, so our own infrastructure as code. We use Vault for our own secrets. So it's not just a case of being able to demo, and it's just a demo of the technology. It's technology that we use ourselves. And so we have not just a level of expertise, but a level of confidence in what it can deliver. And again, I think that's huge. That makes a big difference. There are a lot of organizations out there that can talk about what these solutions can do, but in effect, it's still theory. Whereas in our organization, we're using it. So we can maybe not show you, because that's kind of going to be a bit too much of painting a target on our back. But we can demonstrate a good level of credibility because of the fact that we actually know the technology in our own business. And more importantly, some of the lessons learned, some of the pitfalls, some of the challenges that we found along the way and have overcome, and then can help clients to avoid, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's a wrap, guys. So I just want to say a massive thank you. And, thank you for actually sharing your knowledge and helping to illustrate what these solutions do and how it is affecting the security landscape and the zero trust approach for clients and businesses, across the world. And yeah, really look forward to inviting you onto the podcast again. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. It's been great.
Thank you. Looking forward to doing more with Halo and Pashi.
Quick, you need to register that name. Get the website quickly for anyone else.